The moment I stepped into that hotel room in Chicago, I knew something was about to change. I'm Kate, a woman whose life had become a well-orchestrated symphony of routine. But that night, with the city lights painting our room in a kaleidoscope of colors, my best friend Laura and I opened the door to an unexpected visitor. His name was Derek, and his presence was like a spark igniting a fire I didn't know I was craving. As the night unfolded, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, each moment more thrilling and forbidden than the last. But as the dawn crept through the curtains, I was left with one haunting question. What would the light of day reveal about the choices I made under the cover of darkness? The first thing you notice about me, Kate, is that I'm a creature of habit. At 28, my life is a series of predictable events, each day blending into the next with the precision of a well-oiled machine. I've been married to Mark for 5 years, a man whose kindness and stability are as comforting as they are predictable. But lately, our life together feels like we're walking down a path so familiar that every turn, every stone, is known to us. It's not that I'm unhappy, it's just that the adventure has faded, leaving behind a routine that's as comforting as it is stifling. Enter Laura, my best friend since college, the yin to my yang, the spark to my stability. She's always been the one to drag me out of my comfort zone, to remind me that life isn't just about the journey but the detours along the way. So when she suggested a weekend getaway to Chicago, I didn't hesitate. A break from the mundane, a chance to rediscover the thrill of the unknown. We arrived in the city, the skyline a jagged silhouette against the dusk, and checked into a hotel that screamed urban chic. Our room was on the 25th floor, with a view that made the city look like a living, breathing entity. As we unpacked, the city lights began to twinkle, casting a spell of excitement over us. We planned our days ahead, eager to soak in every experience Chicago had to offer. That night, as we lay in our beds, the city's pulse thrumming through the walls, I felt a shift. It wasn't just the change of scenery, it was something in the air, a whisper of adventure. The first day in Chicago was filled with laughter and exploration. Laura and I visited museums, strolled along the Riverwalk, and indulged in the local cuisine. The evening was winding down when we returned to our hotel room, tired but exhilarated. As we were about to order room service, there was a soft knock at our door. Opening it, we found a man standing there, his features sharp against the dim hallway light. He introduced himself as Derek, a local who had just come from a business meeting. His phone had died, and he needed to make an urgent call. His demeanor was polite, almost apologetic for the intrusion. We invited him in, offering our phone. Derek's presence was magnetic, his voice smooth as he dialed his friend. While he waited for the call to connect, we offered him tea, thinking it would be a brief encounter. He accepted, his eyes scanning our room with a casual interest. Laura and I exchanged a look, a silent agreement that this unexpected visitor added an intriguing twist to our evening. As Derek spoke into the phone, his tone was urgent, yet controlled, hinting at a story beneath his calm exterior. He thanked us warmly once he finished his call, but instead of leaving, he lingered, engaging us in conversation. His stories about Chicago, its hidden gems, and the undercurrents of city life were captivating. We found ourselves drawn into his world, the night stretching out before us like an unwritten chapter. Laura, ever the instigator, suggested we show Derek some of the hospitality Chicago is known for. We decided to go down to the hotel bar, where the atmosphere was lively, the music just loud enough to feel the beat in your chest. Derek seemed at ease as he sipped his tea, and the conversation flowed easily. He was charming, with stories that made us laugh and insights that made us think. Laura and I found ourselves captivated by his charisma. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly, charged with an energy that was both exciting and dangerous. It started innocently enough. A brush of hands as we passed the tea, a shared laugh that lingered a bit too long. Then, As if orchestrated by some unseen force, Derek leaned in to kiss me. The shock of his lips on mine was electric, and instead of pulling away, I found myself responding. Laura watched, her expression unreadable, before she too joined in, her lips finding Derek's. The room, once a sanctuary of friendship, became a stage for an act of betrayal. Clothes were shed, boundaries crossed, and in the heat of the moment, I felt alive in a way I hadn't with Mark in years. The thrill was intoxicating, the touch of skin against skin, the whispers and sighs filling the air with a forbidden excitement. But as the fervor of the moment began to wane, the reality of what we had done started to seep in. I lay there, my heart pounding not just from the physical exertion, but from the weight of my actions. Derek's breathing slowed, his arm draped over me in a way that felt both comforting and suffocating. Laura was quiet, her gaze fixed on the ceiling, lost in thought, or perhaps regret. The silence was heavy, filled with the unspoken questions about what this meant for us, for our friendship, for my marriage. I thought of Mark, his gentle smile, his unwavering support, and the life we had built together. A life that now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by this night of passion and recklessness. Derek stirred, his voice breaking the silence. "That was unexpected," he murmured, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Laura finally turned, her head, her eyes meeting mine, a storm of emotions swirling within them. I knew we had crossed a line, one that could not be uncrossed. The thrill of the moment was fading, leaving behind a tangle of emotions and consequences. What would happen now? As Derek excused himself to the bathroom, the silence in the room grew even more oppressive. Laura and I were left alone, the air between us thick with the weight of our actions. I could feel the heat from our shared experience still lingering on my skin. Yet now it felt like a branding, marking me with guilt and confusion. I turned to look at Laura, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions. Her eyes, usually so bright with mischief and life, now seemed shadowed with regret, or perhaps fear. I wanted to reach out, to say something, anything, that might ease the tension, but words failed me. Instead, I whispered, "Laura, what have we done?" She didn't answer immediately, her gaze drifting to the city lights outside our window, as if searching for answers in the twinkling skyline. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost lost in the hum of the city below. "I don't know. Kate, I really don't know." The silence stretched on, filled only by the distant sounds of Chicago's nightlife. My mind raced, thoughts of Mark flooding in, his trusting smile, the way he looked at me with such unwavering love. It all felt like a betrayal now, a betrayal not just of him, but of the life we had built together, the vows we had made. Laura shifted, pulling the sheet closer around her as if it could shield her from the reality of our situation. Do you think this changes everything?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to speak. "I think it might," I admitted, the truth of it settling in like a stone in my stomach. "But how? I'm not sure." The bathroom door opened, and Derek returned, his presence once again filling the room with an energy that was both comforting and unsettling. He looked between us, perhaps sensing the shift in atmosphere. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes probing. Laura and I exchanged a glance, a silent agreement to keep our turmoil hidden for now. "Yes, everything's fine," I managed to say, though my voice lacked conviction. As Derek returned, his presence now a stark reminder of our indiscretion, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. He thanked us for the phone and the company, his voice carrying a note of finality. As he prepared to leave, I realized that this moment This man had given me something I hadn't felt in my marriage, a sense of being truly desired. I watched him go, a part of me wishing he would stay, another part relieved he was leaving. The door closed behind him, and the room felt suddenly empty, the silence deafening. The weight of what had just happened settled over me like a heavy blanket. I turned to Laura, who was now sitting up, her eyes reflecting the same turmoil I felt inside. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the reality of our actions beginning to sink in. Laura's response was slow, her gaze distant. We need to talk, Kate, about everything." Her words were heavy, laden with the gravity of our situation. Nodded, feeling the room spin slightly as I tried to process the night's events. The thrill, the passion, it had all been so intoxicating. But now, in the stark light of the morning, it felt like a betrayal, not just to Mark, but to myself, to the life I had promised to uphold. "We crossed a line," I said, the words tasting bitter. "A line that can't be uncrossed." Laura looked at me, her eyes searching mine for some sign of what to do next. "Do you regret it?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I paused, the question hanging between us like a guillotine. Did I regret the passion, the feeling of being alive in a way I hadn't in years? Or did I regret the betrayal, the potential ruin of my marriage? I don't know, I admitted, my heart aching with the complexity of my emotions. The silence stretched on, filled with the unspoken words of our shared guilt and confusion. Finally, Laura spoke, her voice firming with resolve. "We need to figure out what this means for us. For you and Mark. For us." In the days that followed, back in the comfort of my home, the memory of that night in Chicago lingered like a ghost. I didn't feel shame. Instead, I felt a strange empowerment. Derek had awakened something in me, a desire for more than what my life with Mark offered. I decided to keep this secret, not out of guilt, but as a personal treasure, a reminder of my own desires and the capacity for passion that still burned within me. My relationship with Laura remained unchanged on the surface, but beneath, there was a new understanding, a shared secret that bound us in a way nothing else could. As for Mark, he remained unaware, his life with me continuing as it always had, but for me, life had subtly shifted. I had tasted something wild, and while I would never tell him, I knew I would always carry that night with me, a silent testament to my own complexity and desires. The days turned into weeks, and the secret of that night began to shape my interactions, my thoughts, and even my dreams. I found myself looking at Mark differently, not with less love, but with a new layer of complexity. I wondered about the secrets he might hold, the desires he might suppress. Laura and we didn't speak of it explicitly, but there was an unspoken agreement to keep our encounter with Derek locked away, a Pandora's box we dared not open again. Yet it was there, influencing our conversations, our laughter, even our silences. I started to notice things I hadn't before. The way Mark's eyes would light up when he talked about his work, the gentle touch of his hand on my back as we walked, the quiet moments of intimacy that now felt charged with an undercurrent of my own hidden desires. One evening, as we sat together watching a movie, I felt the weight of my secret like a stone in my chest. Mark reached for my hand, his touch warm and familiar. "You've been quiet lately," he observed, his voice soft, concerned. I squeezed his hand, the touch, grounding me back to reality. "Just thinking about life, I guess," I replied. The truth of my, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you